Let's talk cameras. So I've been shooting with Sony for a number of years now. I originally started on Canon many years ago, and then I migrated to Sony, and I've loved the Sony system ever since. And when I first pulled the trigger on my Sony a7 IV, I did pay attention to a lot of the reviews that talked about the overheating. And that's a really big deal for me. My workflow is shooting long form podcasts, so we're talking 1 to 2 hours, and also all day conferences. So again, these kind of keynote speakers where the talks will go on for like 2 hours. So I need to have a camera that's reliable. I can switch it on, I can let it record for 1, 2, maybe even 3 hours without any glitches, without any problems. And up until now, this has served me really well. That is, until I switched it over to 4K. Now, it's 2024. People are shooting in 8K, probably even 12K, and 6K seems to become like the new norm with the Panasonic Lumix series coming up with 6K. You've got your Blackmagic cameras, which will record in 6K. So I don't think it's a big deal for me to be able to shoot in 4K, 25 frames per second or 24 frames per second for all of my content. One of the reasons I didn't do it before was storage space, and I've since started to change my workflow, and I now don't keep any of my raw footage that I know that I'm not going to use. And that's one of the problems when it comes to being a videographer. You like to hold on to all of your footage. So now I've got a workflow where I edit everything, I export the final edit, I'll also export a clean edit which doesn't have any titles, any music, any graphics. So if I do need to go back to an episode or a talk, I've got a nice clean ProRes 422 high quality file that I can go and grab clips from or grab any kind of content that we want. So the other day I switched on the 4K on here and I thought, let me just do some recordings in this studio. I had 3 cameras set up, and 20 minutes in, one of them switched off, and it was because it was overheating. Another 5 minutes after that, another one switched off. Now I live in the UK, and even though it's summer right now, it's still only 21, 22 degrees Celsius outside, and in my home it's probably around about the same temperature. So I was quite surprised when I noticed the cameras were struggling with recording in 4K and going for extended periods of time. So I ran some more tests. I left the cameras running, I changed a few things, and the same thing happened. So yeah, I was left extremely sad and extremely disappointed because I've invested in 3 of these. Now, I'm not going to claim to be a Sony fanboy, but I'll be honest, I did jump on a little bit of the bandwagon when I was looking to switch over from Canon and get my first full-frame camera, which was the a7 III. I obviously watched a lot of YouTube videos and I saw the hype around this camera and I jumped on the bandwagon, and ever since, I'll be honest, I have been on a little bit of a journey with Sony and I've really enjoyed using the system. I've also recently started to invest in a bit more native glass, so the G series. Haven't yet quite got to the G Master. I originally had the 24-70 G Master when I first bought the a7 III, but I sold that. Regrettably, I sold that. I wish I actually kept hold of that lens. It's probably one of the best lenses I've ever used on any camera system. To me, a camera is just a tool, right? It's a tool to help me to do what it is I need to do. And if a tool stops working and stops serving its purpose, I don't see any reason to stay loyal to it, right? It's not a person, it's just a thing, right? And as hard as that is when you've invested in the ecosystem, you've invested in glass, I've got cages, I've got lots of specific things for my Sony Alpha series of cameras, it's just not viable for me to be recording with anxiety about overheating. So it's time for a change. So here it is, the Panasonic S5IIX. I pulled the trigger. I've actually bought 2 of these. I've since sold all of my Sonys. And here's just a quick look at what you get in the box. You get the strap, you get a USB cable, which is quite useful. You get a power brick, which is used to charge or power the battery. You get your nice battery as well. And then you've got the camera itself. And the camera itself is beautiful. I love the black colorway. There's a little bit of issue in reading the dials on the top, but actually I'm getting used to it. I like the fact that the lens cap locks onto place, or the cover locks into place. You've got your usual microphone jack, headphone input, output here. You've got a full-size HDMI, which the a7 IV had as well, and a USB-C port. And then you've got dual SD card slots, which I like as well. It's just an ergonomically very nice design. I also picked up these Kondor blue dummy batteries because the USB-C port can be used to record to an SSD, but If you are trying to power the camera as well, then obviously you can't use the USB port, so I had to get some dummy batteries. Now, I've heard some horror stories with dummy batteries, which is why I've invested in these Kondor blue kits, because they're just a little bit higher quality. Yes, they cost a bit more money, but I don't want to take any risks with my new camera. I also got the 15mm 1.8 S series lens. This lens is amazing. I cannot believe this is such a reasonably priced lens, and I also picked up the kit lens with it as well. And then for the SSD option, I had to find a way of mounting an SSD to it, because as I said, I want to run this camera for a long time at conferences, at events, and I don't want to have to worry about SD cards running out and all sorts of things. So just recording to an SSD is always handy, and this little clamp from Smallrig is quite nice and tidy, and it provides me everything that I need. So that's my first impressions and unboxing of the Panasonic S5IIX. I've done a few recordings. I probably haven't tested it enough to really get to grips with it. I'm just testing out a few things. I immediately love the colors that are coming out of this camera, and that's not even shooting in log profile, just shooting in standard picture profile, which I've done some tests on, and it actually looks really, really good. I love the fact there are so many options in terms of codecs, and I'm really going to put them to the test with regards to podcast recordings. And I've got a big event coming up in a couple of months, which is over in the US. So I'm going to take these cameras, I'm going to hire another one of these cameras as well, and I'm really going to put them to the test by letting them try and see if I can get them to record all day long. Of course, these cameras have a fan built in, so I'm hoping I don't get any overheating, and so far from all the research I've done, no one's experienced any kind of overheating with these cameras. So watch this space. I'll be back with some more videos about the S5IIX and my experience, but this was my first impressions and unboxing. Goodbye, Sony.